Hola amigos, welcome to our first edition of Sideline Scoop, where you get all your top-notch sports news straight from our NCHS live cast. My name is Connor Thompson.
And I am Ian Hansen.
And I'm Michael Grunier.
So our first topic this week is going to be, was the girls' soccer game last Saturday against Zionsville a fluke?
I mean, I don't think so. They had, Zionsville always has a pretty good team, always coached pretty well. We ended up coming on top 3-2, two of the goals being scored by freshmen. So along with the freshmen, we also have some strong senior leadership from Gracie Wagner, Ava Lau, Savea Brockington, Sophie Pastore. So I think we're looking pretty good, and it's going to be a pretty good season.
I think the fact that you have two freshmen in the first game scoring goals says a lot about where they're going to go going forward. I mean, Zionsville hasn't been beat by North Central in 8 years, I think. So I mean, that's spectacular.
Now moving on to Los Muchachos. Do you think the boys' soccer team will recover from last season's heartbreak in semi-state and after losing 17 varsity players?
I think so. The program as a whole had only lost 4 games last year, JV, freshman, and varsity. So all the players that are coming up playing varsity this year are all going to be pretty good. And Coach Jerry Little always has a pretty good team. So I think they'll be just fine.
And I mean, like most new teams, they lost 17 varsity players last year. It takes time to gain a rhythm. And I think over time, they got their first win out of the way. They have a chip on their shoulder from last year. People think they won't be as talented. I think, by midseason, I think they're going to really improve and get going.
Yeah, even though the game was only 1-0, they had lots of opportunities. It could have been a 4-0, 5-0 game. So I think they're going to do well.
And it'll clean up over time,
yeah,
for sure.
Now moving on to football. What do you guys expect out of the student section this week, considering it's American themed?
Considering that it is the first game, I think it'll still be great, but it won't be as packed as usual just because of the fact there's actually a concert that's going to be popular among the North Central student body. Jeezy and Lil Uzi Vert are going to be in town at the same time as the football game, so I think a lot of students are going to be at that as well, but I still think it's going to be a great outcome.
Yeah, it's the first game. I think lots of people will come out. We've been getting better every single year with Coach O'Shea and the leadership from Liam Thompson and Harry Oakes. I think we'll be fine. I heard there's rumors of big heads, players' big heads going to be held up, defense posters or signs going to be out, and they have some great student section leaders, Skylar Blackwell, Jack McBride, Max Kirchable, Annika Dean, and others. So they'll all be out there pushing on the team.
It is America, so it should be great. Okay. Now moving on to the Colts. Do you think Andrew Luck will have a successful return this year?
Oh yeah. I mean, first game, 6-9, 64 yards. They have a great new coach who's going to put him in the right situation, new offensive line. I mean, his rookie year, he brought a 2-14 team to 11-5, and I mean, the owner, Jim Irsay, says he's going to be better than ever, so I believe him.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game. I thought he looked pretty good. I don't know too much about football, but I think he looked pretty quick. He threw the ball well. It was a little scary, that one hit right when he got sacked.
Yeah,
but he got right back up, and he looked good. And the dude's got to have some good karma coming sometime. Every time he gets hit, he slaps a guy in the back and says, "Nice hit." So he's got to be doing something right.
Okay, now moving on to another Colts potential player. Do you think Le'Veon Bell could become a Colt in the near future?
I think absolutely. If you look on the NFL's Instagram, every time there's a picture of Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, or a Colts player, Le'Veon Bell is always commenting on it. And Le'Veon Bell has also said how he does not want to be in Pittsburgh anymore, and he's told his agent that. So even Vegas has put odds where he's going to go after this season, and the Colts are third in that list behind the Steelers and the Jets. And I don't think the Jets is a possibility because he has said on Twitter that to go and play for the Jets, you have to get 6 digits, and I don't think the Jets will do that.
I mean, I know it's just Instagram, but he's still part of the Steelers. If I was in the front office, I wouldn't want, a star player commenting on other teams' things and, starting this controversy. He's also had injury history. He's been suspended. Do you really want that kind of guy in your locker room?
He's pretty good. I mean, if I'm
good.
in my fantasy leagues, I'm the first pick. That's who I'm drafting.
I'm going to have to go with Michael here. I think he's going to look really good in the blue and white. So now we're going to introduce our first guest, head coach for football, Kevin O'Shea.
Hi, gentlemen.
Hey, Coach. How you doing?
So our first question for you is, how did it feel to leave your school last year when you came here?
It's difficult. We'd had a lot of success, 5 state championships in 8 years, and it's a hometown. I lived there for over 20 years. It is my wife's hometown. So anytime you leave home, it's a difficult thing to do, but I was very interested in this challenge.
Mm-hmm. So follow up for that, What's the biggest difference from your previous school in North Central?
Size.
Yeah.
Absolutely size. I mean, when you go from a smaller Catholic school, and I'd coached at bigger schools before, but, you know, North Central's the third biggest school in the state.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't get much bigger than this.
How big was the other school?
I've coached at 5A and 6A schools
Okay.
before, but the previous one I had, there's about 280.
Big difference.
Wow,
All right.
that's really
So
nice.
who's your coaching idol and why?
I would say there's two. One of them would be my father. My father, Frank, is in the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. He has been a mentor of mine for many years. And a guy I idolized growing up was Tom Landry, who was the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And Tom was one of those guys. He was an innovator, and that's why I really enjoyed watching his teams play.
Okay, so this Friday, tomorrow, we are gonna have first game against Fishers Tigers. What are your expectations for the game?
Well, I want our kids to go out and play hard. I want them to play smart football. Not turn the ball over. Defensively, I want us to get after it. And you know, Coach Jimmy Pappas has done a great job in leading our defense, and I think they'll be up to the challenge. You know, offensively, Coach Mark Brown is our offensive coordinator, and I think he's really got his ideas going with the kids. I think our offensive line is going to be the key from the offensive standpoint, and if we can consistently get first downs, if we can consistently move those chains, good things are going to happen for us.
As we talked about the student section earlier, do you think we're gonna have a great turnout?
I really want a great turnout. I think these kids deserve it. They've worked hard over these past few weeks. Last year, I think they got a little taste of what winning was about, and you know, no matter what happens on Friday night with the game, it's always fun to get out there with, you know, your classmates, you know, freshman through senior, and just have a good time from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and cheer your buddies on, and hopefully we get the school year started off right.
So if you're allowed during the game, what would you have for a mid-game snack?
Easily pizza.
Pizza?
Pizza.
From where?
Gosh, it's tough. Moving down here, there's so many different places around here. In the old days, I just said Pizza King, but now it may have changed. I'm kind of partial to Blaze right now.
I like that one.
All right, I got a would you rather for you. Would you rather be the winningest coach in the state of Indiana or have the most state championships?
Well, I think sometimes they kind of go hand in hand, but being the winningest coach is probably not possible because Bud Wright is still coaching with 400 and some, and I'm sitting at about 220. So right now I would say, how about the most state championships?
All right.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you,
on the
Coach.
show.